I never thought a single favor could change the course of my life. But looking back now, I can trace it all back to one quiet moment, a glance, a pause, a whisper between two people who should never have felt what they did. My name is Emily. I've been married to Mark for nearly 10 years. We built a life together, steady and comfortable. Mark is good, dependable, the kind of man people trust. His best friend, Jason, had been part of that life from the very beginning. He wasn't just Mark's friend, he was practically family. I admired their bond, how years of memories tied them together like brothers. But sometimes, what feels unshakable on the surface hides fractures underneath. Jason never crossed a line, not really. But the way he looked at me was different. There was something in his eyes, like he could see past the smile I wore for the world and straight into the quiet ache I carried every day. His gaze never demanded, never asked, but it lingered. And in that lingering, I felt exposed. At first, it was nothing. Just a feeling. A whisper in the space between us. The way his laugh softened when he spoke to me, the way he remembered small details I had mentioned weeks before. It didn't feel wrong, at least not then. It felt human. As if someone finally noticed the parts of me I didn't even realize were starving for attention. Mark loved me, I knew that. But love sometimes gets buried under routine, under exhaustion, under the thousand small distractions of life. And somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling seen. Jason's attention slipped quietly into that void. One summer evening, everything shifted. We were outside after a long barbecue, the laughter of family and friends fading inside the house. Jason handed me a glass of water. Our fingers brushed barely, a spark so small it could have been nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was heat, sharp and alive, rushing through me so fast I forgot how to breathe. "You look tired lately," he said, his voice low, steady. I forced a smile. "Just busy." But his eyes held mine, unwavering. "You don't have to say you're fine if you're not." That broke something inside me. I didn't cry, I didn't confess, but my silence told him more than I could ever put into words. He didn't push. He just sat beside me, close enough that his presence felt like shelter. And for one fragile moment, I leaned into it. We never spoke about it again. Not directly. But from that night, everything was different. I noticed the way he moved, the gentleness in his gestures, the unspoken warmth when our eyes met across a crowded room. I saw him differently, and I hated myself for it. Weeks later, Jason stopped by when Mark was at work. He was dropping off a forgotten toolbox. I invited him in for coffee. It was innocent, I told myself. Just a neighborly kindness. We laughed about small things, filling the kitchen with easy conversation. But then came that silence again, that heavy, unshakable pause that seemed to say everything we weren't allowed to. "I shouldn't come by when he's not here," Jason said at last. "I know," I whispered. But neither of us moved. When he finally stood, setting his cup down, his voice trembled with something unspoken. "You deserve to be asked how your day was. To be looked at like you matter." I couldn't speak. My chest ached with all the words I wasn't allowed to say. He turned toward the door, then back again. "Mark's like a brother to me. I'd never betray that. I wish things were different." And then he left. I didn't sleep that night. His words echoed in my head, pulling me apart in ways I couldn't name. We hadn't done anything wrong, not really. But the feelings, the recognition of being seen, understood, wanted, those were harder to silence than any action could have been. For a while, I convinced myself maybe I'd misread it all. Because soon after, Jason appeared again, but not alone. A woman was with him, soft-spoken, graceful, the kind of presence that instantly filled a room without trying. "A friend from work," he said. They seemed comfortable, familiar. I smiled, laughed, played the gracious hostess. But inside, something twisted. Was I foolish? Was it all in my head? But then, a few days later, he returned alone. We sat on the porch, the summer air thick around us. And this time, his words cut deeper. "She's good," he said softly, "but she's not the one." He paused, looking at me with raw honesty. "The only time I've ever felt that was with someone I can't have." I shook my head. You can't say that. I know, he whispered. But it's true. After that day, we saw each other less. I think we both knew it had to be that way. The tension between us was too much, and yet, too fragile to survive if pushed further. Meanwhile, something changed at home. Mark began to notice me again. He asked how my day was. He leaned closer at dinner. He reached for my hand without me having to ask. I don't know if he sensed something had shifted, or if life had simply woken him up. But we found our rhythm again, soft, steady, real. And still, a part of me remained tethered to Jason. Not in action, not in betrayal, but in thought. He was the reminder of what I had almost lost. Then, months later, Jason stopped by again. Mark welcomed him with laughter, the bond between them unchanged. I smiled, poured drinks, played my part. But later, when it was just the two of us on the porch, he turned to me. You ever think about that day? He asked quietly. My throat tightened. I nodded. All the time. We didn't say more. We didn't need to. Because some truths live forever in silence, in the space between what we want and what we cannot have. And sometimes, one favor, one moment, is enough to change everything.